All right, Jimmy, here we are.
Yes, here we are, another week.
Indeed. And quite the week we've had, locally and nationally. Oh, my goodness.
Let's leave it for now nationally because I think we have enough there to cut and go. Ooh, it's getting interesting, uh, and it's getting embarrassing too. Let me
Yeah.
tell you something that most of my listeners do not know. On March the 2nd, we set, well, some people in Puerto Rico celebrate the date of the Act of Jones, which granted citizenship to Puerto Ricans. For those of you who think that it was because they wanted us to be equal, not really. And that if you read the act, we're still second class citizens. But there was something called a World War One going on, and they needed good recruits, so they were able to draft Puerto Ricans because now they were U.S. citizens, so they could draft them. And basically, what they do, they took all the troops off the Canal,
Yeah.
send them to Europe, and send all the Puerto Ricans to the Canal because basically they didn't consider Puerto Ricans smart enough to go into war, which some of us enjoyed very much. That you don't think as me that smart, so you don't send me to the war front. I'm not going to fight that one. I'm going to accept that one. If you don't want me, I'm fine with that. But there was a delegation of the Republican Party of Puerto Rico to Washington, and they had a 2 day conference trying to recruit support from the House and the Senate for Puerto Rico statehood. And it was a total, absolute disaster. They had asked for a meeting with Trump. He said no. They asked for a meeting with higher ranking staff. They said no.
Mm.
They talked to the lower staff who told them that there was no way they could schedule them in at this time, and much less to discuss statehood of Puerto Rico at this time. I
Okay.
think they talked about 8 representatives and 2 senators who talked to them about statehood, and the rest of them, for lack of a better word, total, totally ignored them. Uh, it's a harsh reality that they are starting to realize. In the past, people thought that the Republican Party supported statehood for Puerto Rico, and let me tell you the true history. Don Luis Alferre was a multimillionaire in Puerto Rico who favored statehood for Puerto Rico, and he's approached the Republican Platform Committee in 1962 and said, "Hey, we would like to put this in here." And he ended negotiating a donation of $1 million in exchange of them putting on the platform that the Republican Party supports statehood for Puerto Rico. That had been continued every 4 years. After his death, the owners of Plaza América de Funileras continued doing it. It went up from 1 million to 2.5, and it was there. Last year, uh, Donald Trump instructed you do not put that on the platform. I don't care how much money they offer. It's not going to happen. I'm going to substitute all these donations with Elon Musk's donation, and we're going to go that route. It really was interesting to see that for the first time in from 40 years, they took out from the platform state
Mm.
of Puerto Rico. And they made it an issue of campaign that if the Democrats got elected, that they would bring in Washington D.C. as a state, giving them uh, Democrat senators. If Puerto
Right.
Rico became a state, they would give another two Democrats, and that would take Democrats would take control of the
Senate.
government for the next
Yeah.
40 or 50 years, and that would be absurd. So they would go against it. Elon Musk, in interviewing Joe Reagan's podcast, that I know you listen to from time to time, said
Correct.
that one of the reasons he decided to go from Democrat to Republican was that he opposes statehood for Puerto Rico, he opposes statehood for Virgin Islands, he opposes statehood for Washington D.C. because that would only be Democrats uh, coming into the House and Senate and giving them their control. And basically, that's why he opposes it. And he made a little comment here that he would not be opposed to giving independence to Puerto Rico. Now, for those of you who think, well, who cares what Elon Musk says? Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Who follows what Elon Musk says? Donald Trump. Who
that's
keep
correct.
telling you whatever he's doing it right? Follow his instruction? Donald Trump. So
Hmm.
at this point, they spend over $7 million going to Washington, getting hotel rooms, getting airline tickets, creating parties, creating this and that, and they came back home with zero, less than ever in the history of Puerto Rico. It's a total failure. So, with that in mind, this is what we need to realize: the changes in the federal government. Not
Hmm.
only is he rejected BC, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands for statehood, he has also fired 60,000 employees from the VA administration.
That's
That's
correct.
not. And veterans who supposedly are military people and voted for him, and I can't say that because as a veteran, I take offense when people put us all in one package. We don't.
Sure.
But if the services, my friend, veterans, were horrible in the past, with 60,000 people less, get ready for non existing services. The
However,
problem is
Jim,
that VA cannot get better by firing 60,000 people. There's no way.
However, Jimmy, and I have not been able to personally verify this. It's been crazy busy. I can tell you the Trump administration has been like full speed ahead. However, what I've heard is that what the administration wants to do is push back employment levels, staffing levels to pre-pandemic levels. And the justification is that okay, that was during the pandemic. We're not in the pandemic. Let's bring things back to a level where it was normal. Is that normal?
No. And, and that's a lie. They did not hire post during the pandemic 60,000 new employees in the VA. What they did do, morons, was they opened three new hospitals during the pandemic, including, for those of us who live here in Central Florida, they were still staffing the new
Yeah.
VA hospital in Lake Nona. And
Yes.
yes, they hired a lot of staff for that hospital. They did. And they, for the other two hospitals that opened during the pandemic that were scheduled to open, they did hire people. But that's not the stupidity of it. We want to go back to the what are you going to do about the new hospitals that you open? Are you going to unstaff them all completely? Because if you want to go back to the then fire everybody from all the three new hospitals and leave them on without staff because those are the new employees. That's the
Right.
problem I'm having with the Trump administration, how they lie. And they tell you one thing, when the reality is another. Yes, there were people that were hired during the pandemic, but it was not because of the pandemic. It was because they were in program to be hired because of the new hospitals. And we here in Central Florida know that they opened one that hired over 5,000 people:
Correct.
doctors, custodians, staff that sets up appointments, staff that controls that, nurses, assistant nurses, therapists, and I could go on. So basically, when people tell me, "Whoa, they hired," they didn't. That's the lie of Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a liar. He did not hire anybody during the pandemic. Those
Mm.
people were already programmed with the new hospitals to be hired. And these were people that had been programmed that were needed.
Right.
We knew that traditionally the VA, more than anybody else, those of us who are veterans know that for years the VA has been understaffed. For years,
Mhm.
that we veterans have been treated by the government like garbage, and now you're going to take away the employees that were trying to serve us, and can some moron in Washington or the staff or even the moron of any of us explain to me how that's going to benefit uh, the service of the veterans? I defy you. You don't have the guts.
Um, Going back to the Puerto Rican statehood question,
Yes.
uh, I believe I either saw online or I read that there is a prominent Republican senator or representative who supports statehood for Puerto Rico and
Oh,
will
yeah.
advocate for that.
That is the newly elected senator from the state of Oklahoma, whose name escapes me.
Okay.
But there is a movement in his home state to recall him and have him answered, how does statehood for Puerto Rico benefit the residents of Oklahoma?
They want to recall him, remove him,
Based on
remove
that,
that.
yeah. Not only that, what he said is that he was not opposed. And this is where people hear things that are not exactly the way they're meant. He said, I'm not opposed to having a plebiscite in Puerto Rico where the people of Puerto Rico select between statehood, independence, or free association with the United States, and to listen to their arguments. That's what he really said. He did not say
Okay.
he favors statehood. He just said, I favor a plebiscite where we can hear what the people of Puerto Rico want. Uh, and that's how bad things are. Right now, you have Lindsey Graham saying publicly that he opposes a statehood for Puerto Rico. You have Mitch McConnell saying the same, and a bunch of other prominent people the same. And I'm going to say one thing: the our state senator Rick Scott goes to Puerto Rico, collects money, saying he's
Yeah.
going to be an advocate for the state of Puerto Rico. He goes to Miami and other places, saying, I'm an advocate for the state of Puerto Rico. He has not presented one legislation. He has not said one thing. And when people call say that they don't want statehood for Puerto Rico, he's not even said that he's in favor of having a plebiscite. He
That's
is
true.
a hypocrite.
That's true. And Jimmy, I just looked it up. It was Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen.
Correct. Okay, that's his name.
Yes,
But
Senator
have you seen
Mullen.
the backlash that has created? Because if you look at it up, you're going to see the backlash that has created.
I'm going to do that later because I followed the discussion between. There was a Senate hearing between Mark Wayne. I'm sorry, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, and I forgot his name. And I'm sure it'll come to me. A labor leader in regards to, I think, just labor law, or it was doing the threat of the longshoremen. Going on strike last year, and these two individuals had a testy interaction, and it appeared that they had a history of really going after each other on Twitter, and one challenged the other to a fight, and
Okay, I'm going to defend Musk for the first time. It's X. Stop calling it Twitter. Twitter,
yes, sir.
it was a decent thing. Now X is a piece of garbage. As a matter of fact, it's lost a lot of its value. Stock is plummeted since he's opened it. He paid more than what's worth today. But Elon Musk is a great businessman.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, for Senator Mullen to get behind this, I was surprised. I was very surprised.
I'm not surprised because if you know his history from X, he likes to take what I would call extreme positions.
Oh,
He has been led to believe, and let's, and he has a point, okay, that is, there is something that the last plebiscite, he is where he's coming from. The last
okay,
plebiscite in Puerto Rico, which was in November of last year, so it's not 10 or 20 years ago, we're talking less than 4 months ago, uh, it stated you had two positions, statehood or independence.
okay, right.
Either free association with the United States as a buddy buddy like Canada is with England, or just free out. And yes, they are right. 50 4 56% voted for statehood, but 44% voted for independence.
Yeah.
And he sees what a lot of us are seeing is that the independence movement with the youth of Puerto Rico is taking more and more strength because of different reasons, partially because the Republican Party that's in control of Puerto Rico, everybody realizes they're corrupt. Uh, That so it is a matter. He has a hope that if 48% vote for independence, that will give him the position to present to the Senate a position to of strength to say the people of Puerto Rico want independence. Let's give it to them, and that way they will prevent Puerto Rico ever becoming a democratic state at all. So there will be no way that Puerto Rico would ever have the 12 representatives and the two senators that the majority will be Democrat. So that way is a way to say, that we always try to present things with, especially in politics, with BS. What the BS here is, oh, the people of Puerto Rico want independence. Let's give it to them. No, the truth of the matter is, this is his excuse. He's not pro statehood of Puerto Rico. People don't even daydream that he is. He is trying to say to the people in the House, look, you got a high 40% of the people voting for independence. And with the corrupt that the government is and the corrupt that their elections are in Puerto Rico, we could basically say that they want independence. So let's give it to them. And that way prevent forever Puerto Rico from ever becoming a state, giving them any representative in the House or in the Senate.
Right.
So yes, but his motives are not that he wants us to become a state. It's more the opposite. But
Right.
I don't know. President Musk might send out an executive order saying that we are to give Puerto Rico independence, and that might pass. He is opposed to the statehood for Puerto Rico. It came out of his mouth. I am not
Right.
saying something that I'm interpreting. He said it in black and white in John Reagan's podcast, which basically uh, people think has certain influence in the millenniums. I differ. I don't think anybody has any influence on them, but that's another story for another day. And for the Democrats, yeah, the problem is that you have abandoned that group of people. You have insulted us by saying that we're going to tell you who your candidate for president is. So yeah, people are not exactly happy with the leadership, but we don't have anybody coming. There's
Yeah.
nobody out there. Yeah. By the way, somebody the other day saw me the phone and called me the crazy Democratic uncle. So I'll take that as a badge of honor. I never thought of myself that way, but
um, it would Trump has taken the issue of making Canada, the 51st state, or, Canada being the territory of the United States. And I understand that they're looking at some treaty that was signed some time ago, and there's concerns about where the boundaries are. It, I guess my question i- is it something that Trump specifically wants from Canada that makes Canada that much more desirable as a entity within the United States uh, versus just trying to take care of the commonwealths that are already the territories that are already within the United States family. I guess I'm saying, you know, is it all political?
partially it's more racial.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say this, and I have to take it off my chest. You have to understand his mentality. He wants also Greenland
Yeah.
as a 51 state, one or the other, and Greenland is 98% white, even though it has less than half a million inhabitants. It's uh, 98% white. If they get a couple of House representatives and two senators, they will be white. Sorry, but I have to call it the way I see it, not the way
Sure.
that
Sure.
some people. And the same with Canada. Okay, these are English speaking people. And there's some French people, but they're not as bad as those of us who speak Spanish. The French we can tolerate, but because
Yeah.
of other reasons. But that would make the composition of this country, and this is numbers, and this is something that I don't think people sit down and say, "Let me try to figure out what his ulterior motive is." Uh, Look, he's not crazy. He has an ulterior motive, and making America great again means making America wide again. Okay,
Mhm.
let's stop pretending that's something else. You bring in Canada into a U.S. election, African Americans go to less than 10% of the
Yeah,
whole country.
that's true.
Okay, let's call it like Hispanics become less than 20% of the total country because of the influx of white people. And if you make both Greenland and Canada
Oh yeah.
say the United States, it really is horrible to say this. That is his interest. Economically, he doesn't have the brain. Sorry, he doesn't. Uh,
Okay.
People think he's a genius in economics. Everything he's done shows me the country. But you have a point. He should not be concentrating in Canada or Greenland. Let's go what has happened this week, and which some people might consider uh, the fuck up of the week, but I don't.
Oh,
Right now,
okay. All right.
I don't consider it so, but I'm going to call it out. You have Europe uniting and saying that they're going to start spending on war. They're going to get themselves ready for war. They're
Okay.
going to realize that they cannot count on the United States to defend themselves and that they're going to work together. That gave the excuse of Putin say, oh, if Europe's going to get ready for war, I'm going to get ready for war. And these are things that have been announced. Not that
Right.
you want to say, whoa, where's it getting? Both of us. But here's where it becomes even more horrible. China has said that because the rest of the world is preparing for war, that they are ready for war. We have not had such a mess in 100 years. Last time, well, less than 100 years. Last time this was a big mess was 1939. So yes, it's less than 100 years.
Well,
But
Jimmy, you won't call the Iraq War a big mess? I mean, a lot of servicemen and women, came back injured or in body bags.
yes,
And we're still seeing, some folks still suffer from PTSD, and it costs us trillions.
yes, there was money wasted and all that. But put this at the margin of the United States being attacked by China. We're not in the same picture. With all due respect, Iraq was a walk in the park. A war with China will make us starting to talk Chinese.
Oh, yeah, I mean, their standing army is the size of the population of the United States. Hey, I believe that China is our nemesis, whether it's economically or militarily, their influence around the world. Um, China is our main opponent, and
And,
I go, go ahead.
and the problem here is that what kept all these people in abate is that Europe and the United States were together.
Yeah.
Most countries in Latin America were together. Most countries in Africa were together. And the three countries that were isolated really was China, North Korea, and Russia.
Right.
United sometimes by Iran, but Iran is more of a thing with Israel than it is with the rest of the world. The truth of the matter is that right now, Europe cannot count on the United States. Africa cannot count on the United States. South and Central America cannot count on the United States. And China realizes that the United States is trying to isolate its way, and if it's going to be vulnerable, that an attack could be made on the United States, it's now. Because Europe is not going to come to its rescue, Africa is not going to come to its rescue, Canada is not going to come to its rescue, South America is not going to come to its rescue. We're going to be all alone. with a moron as a president who's fired the best generals and appointed a moron as Secretary of Defense is what you would call back home military the perfect storm. The idiots are in charge.
Okay, and so all right, now this is my point of view. I'll have to push back on this, Jimmy, because what I see in the larger picture is breaking that alliance between North Korea, China, and Russia. And I see what's happening in the Ukraine, and we see Zelensky conceding the minerals deal, even bigger deal for America in return for an American presence in the Ukraine, thus a deterrent to Russia for any future aggression. With the understanding, my understanding, with the understanding that Ukraine would not join NATO. Now, saying that, I believe that Trump is trying to work on an alliance or at least pull Russia away from any type of influence or allyship with Russia and China, the two, and bring Russia back from the edge, so to speak, and align Russia with the United States against a more formidable foe in China, and thus so much attention given to Canada, Greenland, especially that northern passage, and also China has is handing us our butts when it comes to its influence in Africa, South America, and Mexico. Yes, Mexico too, and also on the whole another front China is increasingly improving its own AI capabilities, and I believe that's where one of the fronts will be in this particular adversarial relationship with China.
Let me ask you two questions.
Sure.
One, if China attacked the United States, do you think seriously for 1 second that Russia would come to our rescue?
I don't think China will. I don't think China will directly attack America. I think China will do what it's been doing all along. It's espionage. It's cyber attacks. It's threats over Taiwan, and that's another issue. It's threats over Taiwan. It's smuggling of high performance chips, and I forgot else what they were called, but chips for AI purposes. Its dominance in our economy with all of the Chinese made goods and things like that. I don't think they need to drop one. I don't think they need to drop one bomb.
But
They
you
we're
still haven't
fighting them
answered the
on
question.
different fronts. I'm sorry, what was that?
You still haven't answered the question. If
Okay,
China,
yes. The answer is yes.
do you think that Russia would come to our rescue
I think so.
against China?
I think so.
I don't. Let me tell you why. Putin is not an idiot. That's a war that, look, contrary to popular belief, is the ignorance of most people thinking that Russia is what it used to be. When it was the Soviet Union, it had Georgia, it had Ukraine, it had other countries. It was, it had an army that was formidable. Right now, their army cannot beat Ukraine's army. That's how bad it is. But they're going to go and defeat China. That's militarily makes no sense. Putin is loyal to himself and to his people. He is not going to risk Russia to help out the United States. That's daydreaming on part of Trump. The truth of the matter is, right now, I do not understand the stupidity of saying I'm turning my back on Russia. I mean, I'm turning my back on
On
Europe. I'm turning my back on Canada. I'm turning my back on Africa. I'm turning my back on South America. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to have an alliance with Japan,
mm,
which is right next to China, which
right.
might decide to attack. Not that it is impossible. This is the thing. we're saying we're going to change our alliances and we're going to go with Russia, who for all my life nobody trusted. Everybody knows that Putin is a dictator. Everybody knows that he has people killed. Everybody knows he's not trustworthy. But we're going to put our all our eggs in that basket. A country, and let me clarify this economically, that has less income than Canada,
Hmm.
and economies smaller than Canada,
Right.
population larger, and has over one third of the country that is nobody can live because it's too cold. But we're going to go with our arch enemies because the moron of Trump says we can trust them. No, 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 no. There's one thing I learned in life: you have to prove to me that I can trust you. If you can't prove to me that I can trust you, and I cannot trust Russia. Russia's not stupid enough to attack China. China will hit that border and have them down in less than a week. And I can say that without hesitation. And he knows he cannot win that war against China. God, he could not win the war against Ukraine. So how can he win? So basically, at this point, the United States changing alliances is a dumb move. But you're right. Is why is the Chinese in in Africa and South America and
Hmm.
Central America? Because we walked out, we abandoned them. Look what we did to Mexico, our
Yes,
closest
we
ally.
did. We
We're going
did.
to put 25% tariffs on you because we want you to submit and do whatever we want you to tell you. And then, oh, China says, I'll do business with you. I won't put tariffs on you. I will buy your products.
Mhm.
And we're wondering, oh, they're being influenced by the Chinese. No, moron. They're being influenced by their abandonment of their best ally, the United States of America, who is violating NAFTA, an agreement that they have with them, because the tariffs violate NAFTA. As an attorney, I can tell you right now, the tariffs that they're imposing violate NAFTA. But we are going to say, well, we're going to do this, and they're going to succumb, and they're going to do whatever I tell you. Trump, you're a moron. You don't know anything about economics because
Jimmy,
I'm going to pay every turf, every penny.
Jimmy, I'm trying to make sense of um, the president's overtures to Russia. I'm trying to make sense, and I see an opportunity if I'm Donald Trump to pull Russia away from its relationship from China. I see that, and it will be one less issue that we will have to worry about if we're funding wars in the Ukraine. No one's winning that. There's no winner in that, and we're sending billions of dollars and seeing every day more and more death on the front lines over there. So. If there's a president, President Zelensky, who is willing to cooperate, which in all indication it appears that he is, and if Putin is it President Putin? If Vladimir Putin is ready, Mr. Putin's ready to negotiate a ceasefire or the end to hostilities, um, wouldn't that benefit America having Russia on its side versus that trinity of China, North Korea, and Russia?
First of all, it might, but let's be realistic. What makes you think that Putin is going to say, okay, Trump, I will be your ally, I'll be against China? Makes no sense to
It's
me.
killing his economy. He's losing, military age men, by the day. I would think that alone, the sanctions, the inability to move about as the leader of Russia.
Sanctions, no, let's start. The sanctions no longer exist. Trump took them off. So
Oh, he
let's not
did. Oh, okay,
accept
all right. So they're done.
they're
Okay.
not there. So, but at the same time, then Putin really risks antagonizing China at this stage of it of this. And the answer to that is, you know, that's the problem. You're saying, hey, it would be a great idea to get him to go against China. What is he getting in exchange? Peace in Ukraine? That's it's not up to us. That's
Mm.
for him and Zelensky to work out. That's the truth. Realistically, are we thinking that he's going to become an enemy of China? Oh, give me a break. He's not that stupid. Nobody really wants to be an enemy. Even us, we don't want to be an enemy of China. If we want to negotiate, we want to do peace with them. We don't want to be the enemy. And to be quite honest, we are changing more power for less power. We're taking out Canada, which has a bigger and a better army and better
Mm.
equipped army than Russia right now. Maybe in the past, but now Russia you're right. Don't have anybody of age to fight. That has all of its weapons are practically gone. It's depending on North Korea's soldiers and on North Korea's weapons and on other people's weapons because they don't have it. But they're going to say to us, sure, America, we're going to go against North Korea, who is our ally, who is basically fighting this war, and we're going to go against China, who's our neighbor, who all they have to do is cross the border and take away our gasoline and our petrol, and they have it for themselves, and they could do that in a week. But we're going to do it because we like you, President Trump. That's the idiotic point of Donald Trump. He thinks that he could gain favor with Putin, who's somebody that's not trustworthy. But you're doing this at the expense of alienating all of Europe, all of it, alienating all of Canada, Central America, South America, Japan, and South Korea.
Mm.
But we can exchange all those for Russia. That's moronic. They
Okay,
don't
Jimmy.
have the power that these other people have combined. That's the problem. We're saying we're going to do this with these people, and we're going to give up all these other people, and we trust Vladimir Putin to be a man of his word. I'm not sure how stupid Trump really is, but if that is his where he's coming from, no. Look, I don't think he's trying to play Putin because he's trying to do this power thing. That's three pay grades above his head. He's doing it for two reasons. One, he is trying to get in the good grace of Putin because he likes people who are tough leaders, who are dictators. That's why he liked the guy from South Korea. That's why he liked the other guys from Italy and the guy from Hungary because they are dictators. That's why he likes him. He doesn't like the other ones because the other ones confront him. Okay, they don't send him love letters saying how nice he is and all this. That's you have to understand. That's his mentality. He is not in this for the best interest. And second,
Okay.
and this is something that I cannot prove, but this is my speculation.
Okay.
His bitcoins are starting to become too valuable, and there's a lot of people who are buying them who might be getting influence, and Russia might be one of them. So, with
Mm.
all due respect to everybody, I don't see Zelensky signing any contracts. He says he's willing, and that's just to buy time to see how much he can count on Europe with his war. And second, there is a saying in Ukraine that you have to listen to them. They don't trust the United States sending troops into to Ukraine because they believe that Trump could say, "Hey, Russia's coming in, just let them in," and the
Yeah.
U.S. troops just walk away.
However, Zelensky was asking for assurances for, that type of protection in
Yeah,
these
but
meetings
it was
with
not
Trump.
asking for U.S. troops. He was asking
Neil?
for European troops, and he was asking for an assurance of the United States that if Russia invaded, they would back them again. And Trump would never sign that.
And I wouldn't either. I mean, really. I mean, how long does this war? It's been 3 years. How long must this war drag on? What is the tactical benefits for America? And Jimmy, I just want to
To
pose
be,
to you.
with all due respect, to be a
Sure.
person of honor.
Sure.
You know why Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons?
Because they belong to Russia, right?
No, they
Or
belong
they
to
were
us.
decommissioned.
No, they
How come?
signed a treaty with the United States of America to give up
Right?
those arms. And what did we offer in exchange? That if Russia
Security?
ever invaded them, we would help them.
Sure.
So when we say, well, what are we gaining from this? Well, it's because we idiotically only give them limited weapons because we don't want it to escalate into a world war. I understand that. But basically, at this point, if we had given them the tanks and the aviation that they needed, this war would have been over. Ukraine would be have control of its lands, and everything would be fine. But Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons. See, when the Soviet Union was divided, most of the weapons were in Ukraine. Why? Because it was
Right.
closer to Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, so but we reach an agreement with Ukraine. Say, give up your nuclear weapons, and in exchange, if you're attacked by Russia, we will protect you. That's how we started helping them out the first time because of that. And the second thing is fine if the U.S. wants to take an isolated point that everybody can invade everybody and we can just stay out of it. Get ready for World War III because it's coming.
So, Jimmy, I know you kind of came close to this. What's the alternative? Do we
The
continue the
alternative,
policies of Biden?
no, Biden was wrong. He limited what he gave. He limited when they came and how they came. He didn't want to give them long range. He didn't want to give them weapons that could take the war into Russia. Because he never gave them the planes. He never gave them the sufficient amount of tanks. So basically, their hands were tied. Basically, I would say this in a very special way: let the world help Ukraine. We have told the rest of the world, don't help them. We have told Europe, help them. And for the record, for those of you who do not know this, Europe has given more money to Ukraine for this war than the US. And we have given them nothing really. What we did is we sold them weapons that they're supposed to pay us later, which I understand that some people think that's never going to happen. I respect that. But we made our people here very rich. Let me explain something about the war in Ukraine that no people. The people who control the Pentagon is not the Secretary of Defense. He's an idiot. The people who control the Pentagon are the contractors uh, for war. Basically, they sell us the tanks, they sell us the jets,
Yeah.
they sell us this, and they sell us that, things that we don't need. And what they did is said, hey, let me take all this ammunition that's sitting there and all these things that we're not using right now. We'll send it to Ukraine for it, and they'll buy it from us, and we'll use that money to buy new weapons and new bullets and new stuff. And the people pushing that was not the House, it was not the Senate, it was the defense contractors. And
Sure.
basically, they run the House and they run the Senate. So basically, that's where it came from. The truth of the matter is that basically, right now, they're not the billionaires that are controlling the White House. They're different billionaires that are controlling the White House. And that's it. At the same time, Trump is pissed off because we tend to forget that it was that call with Zelensky that got him into his first impeachment. So he's really pissed off with Ukraine because of that. It has nothing to do with protecting us. It has nothing to do, nothing worse extended 3 years. It has nothing to do. He just hates everything. And that's why he insulted him in the public. And with all due respect to everybody, if you don't want to help Ukraine, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But once the world realizes that we don't stand up for democracy, that we don't stand up for our allies, and that they can attack anybody that they want, hey, get ready. Because if you think that the Chinese have influence, they might not attack the United States, and you're right. But what are we going to do if they invade Africa?
Taiwan or Taiwan.
Oh, Taiwan is a given.
Hmm.
And some people will say, well, if that's part of China, we should not get involved. And that's fine. What are you going to do if they invade Africa?
And Jimmy, I think they've already invaded Africa, South America, um, by industry, by going in and offering to build roads, hospitals, bridges, infrastructure, um, incorporating their companies, and creating a culture in on these continents, because America left a void in the past,
Yeah.
and so we've seen China willing to give, to make huge investments in Africa and South America, and even in Mexico. Instead of manufacturing goods in China, they send the parts to Mexico, and the parts are assembled in Mexico and sold to the United States as made in Mexico. They're finding their way to, you know, influence across the world,
Oh,
and also, integrate itself more into the American economy. Also, to take it even further, Build Your Dream, BYD, the car maker. They have created a EV that is the best selling in the world. In the world. And it's a beautiful car. The most, from what I understand, the most technologically advanced vehicle on the planet. And I see the war being there on that landscape, the technological landscape, in the financial landscape, in AI.
it's,
Yeah,
look,
AI.
they control it and we know it. We just don't want to admit it. Uh, I always like to say that uh, Skarkin got it right in the opening of Newsroom. If few people remember the opening of Newsroom. But when he said that the United States is not the greatest country in the world and gave out statistics that prove it, we're not. We're not. We don't control technology. We think we do. We don't. We think that we control
Deep sea.
uh, manufacturing. We don't even come close to controlling manufacturing. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, one of the things that Bezos went and opposed and made Trump make a spectacle when he said that he was closing down Timu and others, and that
Right.
they could not develop their. Once they put in the U.S. postage, they send it. I received a pen the other day that I've been looking for months from Timu. With all due respect, stop trying to lie to the American people. Timu's still coming through, okay? And all the Chinese and the iPhone that you and I use come from China.
Yes.
We try to say iPhones and Apple is an American product. No, it's not. The laptops, the desktops, they're all made in China. I'm sorry, they are. The only person who puts the assembles, and let me put it this way,
Okay.
assembles computers in this country is Dell. And let's call it what it is. They assemble. All the parts come from China, Taiwan, and South Korea, which we're also trying to antagonize. Okay, by by becoming friends with Russia. Look, this is a stupid move. I do not see. Look, if you could tell me we're going to bring in Russia with Europe, with Canada, with South America, with Africa, I would say that's a great move. But antagonizing the others to bring in a country that is in total chaos, has no military strength whatsoever, and think that we're doing something that's benefiting this country, no, it's benefiting Donald Trump's pocket.
Okay. Maybe an allyship with Russia is not practical. Practical. However, Jimmy, why not make an attempt to end the conflict there between Russia and Ukraine, get both parties to some negotiated agreement, and then that's one less issue that not just America has to worry about, but the rest of the world.
Oh,
Why?
I'm all
I
for that.
applaud that effort.
Yes, I'm all for that. But the problem is that what you're saying is correct. and I'm 200% behind you. But you do not negotiate by calling somebody else stupid, saying that they don't have all the cards in their hand and that they have to do whatever you tell them to do. That's not negotiation. That's bullying and intimidation. Sorry. So if you're going to say, let's negotiate, I agree with you. But
Right.
in fairness to you, are there good faith negotiations? No. Are there concessions? No. Are they? Are you look when you negotiate? You give a little, I give a little, but what they are offering now is you take what I tell you to do and shut up, and that's not going to go. The
However,
thing
Jim,
about the minerals is completely useless. That's just to put money in the pocket of Bezos, put money in the pocket of Musk, and put money in the pocket of Trump. We don't need the minerals. We can buy them like everybody else. Okay, but the trouble that I have with this, and I'm going to say it, is you're right. We should negotiate. But in good faith, can you tell me that we're negotiating? Because if you can, I will accept it.
Jimmy, it was Zelensky who brought forth this minerals deal. First of all, and Rubio had negotiated with the Ukrainian government for an agreement. And then at the White House, the Oval Office meeting, Zelensky started to ask for more. And, that wasn't part of the deal. And if there was a brokered agreement prior to that meeting where it was pretty much a ceremony to sign the agreement, but then Zelensky says, "Well, let's talk about X, Y, and Z." When I'm thinking the mineral deal will guarantee American presence because we have an interest in Ukraine because of that minerals deal, which is obviously important. And therefore, we will protect that interest with the full force of the American military. So I think that was a deterrent for Russia to prolong this war. However, my understanding is that Zelensky was asking more and more during that White House meeting. And if you've already negotiated a deal, which that was the purpose of the meeting, to sign that deal, then there's this. Oh, wait a second, I wanted to do this now. I think that's unfair to the Trump administration and the American people.
I totally disagree with you.
Okay,
First of all,
okay,
you start from a false premise.
okay.
Zelensky did not offer the minerals. The secretary, treasurer of the United States went to them and said, "This is what we want in exchange of our support." They bullied him into that doing that. That's
Was that the prior administration or
the current
since?
administration. The Secretary of Treasury went to Ukraine and put that as a condition. So did Marco Rubio, who has disappointed me completely as a Secretary of State. But
Mm,
the problem that Zelensky comes from is as follows. Let me show you something that I think I know where he's coming from. He does
okay.
not trust that the Treasury Secretary speaks for the administration because there's only one voice. He doesn't trust Rubio because the administration talks with one voice. And when he asked for what he asked, first it was not unreasonable, and he was trying to negotiate with the person who had the ultimate decision, who was Donald Trump, and not his idiots who looked like a deer seeing a light at night. I'm sorry. He wanted some assurances because there was no assurances, and this that the minerals would be the assurances, that's bullshit. Okay, uh, uh, the United States could work out with Putin and say, "Hey, get Ukraine. We're keeping the minerals. Fine, you can keep the minerals." I, there's no assurances of that type. So if people think that that's going to be an assurances, it's not. What if after 5 years the minerals are gone? What assurances does Ukraine have? Zero, zinch, nada. Look, the man was trying to negotiate directly with Trump because he didn't trust what the other people were telling him. Okay? And that is the message that Trump has sent to the world. I rule here with an iron fist and I say what goes. What my idiots around me say does not count for anything. Don't trust them. I have the control. And when he was trying to say, okay, I'm going to negotiate with you directly, uh, disrespect the United States, no. Other than what Trump did, that he was very disrespectful to the United States because he acted like a bully, which that is not our style. Well, but it's our style, but it's in private rooms. We don't do it in public. We try to create the image that we negotiate, not that we bully. But the truth of the matter, I don't see any problem with him asking for assurances because none were negotiated. The only thing that they were to sign that day was the minerals deal. That was it. Nothing
Right.
else. He wanted something more in exchange for that mineral deal that he did. And with all due respect, the people in Europe caught it and noticed that the United States was bullying him. And they said, come to me, we will help you out. Look, I don't think he was disrespectful. I think he was trying to protect his people because he doesn't trust the Trump administration. And I hate to say this, but I'm going to end with this. Nobody in the world trusts us anymore. And that we owe it to Donald Trump. So for him to ask for assurances because he doesn't trust the US government, I'm not offended by that. I have to accept that because Donald Trump has created that and he sold us a bag of bullshit that that this would be good enough. No, it isn't. It was not good enough to Zelensky, and he asked for assurances. And by the way, that's his duty as the president of Ukraine to ask for assurances to protect his people. So I don't find that disrespectful. I find that very correct on his part as a negotiator. Look, you and I have negotiated contracts. We have negotiated, and are they back and forth in negotiations?
Sure.
All the time. So what? That he when with a back and forth with the president saying, "I need this." Where's the disrespect? I don't see it. I really don't.
Jimmy, I checked my phone to see if there were any updates or headlines in regards to this particular situation. If Zelensky has come back and signed the deal, Jimmy, what would be acceptable to you for United States to guarantee or to give some assurances that America will protect Ukraine if there's any further aggression by Russia? What up to what point is acceptable to you?
I'll make that one simple. I don't trust my government. I'm sorry. I don't trust my government. So allow the Europeans, allow the Europeans to be the peace force between Russia and Ukraine. Instead of having American troops there, I don't want American troops in Ukraine. I don't want any of my boys dying. I really
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Let
agree.
the Europeans put the troops there. Okay. Let Ukraine sell us at a reasonable price its minerals. Let them set the prices of the minerals. Kind of interesting that I own something, I set my price. Ooh, what a foreign concept that is. Let them set a reasonable price for our minerals and let us buy from them again the wheat which we use for bread so our prices can come down again. Uh,
Right.
Once that happens, I would have no problem because the European troops would be the ones that, if Russia decides to be stupid again, will be dying, not our troops. And this is the sad part that breaks my heart. I'm an American. I love
Yes.
my country.
Yes.
I use the uniform of the United States Army, so I serve this country. Uh,
Hmm.
and I really do not trust the current administration's word.
Very good.
Not my country. I'm not criticizing my country. I do not trust my current administration's word. And that's why Zelensky had a problem. Realistically, if you were in his position, would you trust any promises from Donald Trump?
That's yeah. That's tough. That's
Oh,
hard.
yeah, it's tough for me as an American to say that my country is capable of having a liar in charge of it and saying that maybe when the world does not trust us anymore, that they may have a good reason. And that's the other problem. When you say, let's go to Russia and try to bring them in the trap, Russia doesn't trust Trump at all. Nobody trusts Trump at all. So what's their incentive to come in with us to make Donald Trump happy? He's gone in 3 years. Sorry, he is.
Jimmy, I just know that I'm trying to. There's got to be some method in this madness. And at one point with Gorbachev, we were good. We were good with Russia, and it's
We were
there's
good
got to be a
with
different
Russia
way.
because Russia dissolved, because Russia tried to become a democracy, because Russia needed our help, and it took down the wall in Berlin, it liberated all Romania and all those other countries in Poland, gave them freedom, and said they're off. And basically, yes, there was something that we got in exchange. But right now, for Pete's sake, please take 10 minutes to convince me that I could trust Vladimir Putin. Just try to convince me because I could.
Yeah,
I
that's a
trust
hard
him.
sell.
It is a hard sell, and that's what I'm trying to say. When people say, "Well, but let's treat it, work with Russia," I don't trust the guy. I
Hmm.
understand when Europeans tell me and Canadians tell me they don't trust Trump. I understand that. I really do.
Yeah,
I shouldn't, but I do. But when people tell me, well, let's ally with Russia against Europe, against Canada, against South and Central America, against Africa, we're going to ally with Russia. We're going to lose more soldiers, more economic power by doing that. It makes no sense to me. So, what's the methodology of Trump? Look, he's a hustler, and that's what he's been all his life. And I understand that.
yes,
Uh, he
yes,
he said it. He came with a platform of revenge, and he's gotten his revenge. He still has a long way to go with it. But part of the
right.
thing is that all the time he has had a cozy relationship with Vladimir Putin. We know
Yeah,
that, and that's
yeah,
fine. If he wants to have that, that is his prerogative as our president. But don't tell me to trust you because I can't. I can't trust a government that tells me that they're all for the veterans, then fire 60,000 people, say, and then come up with the biggest lie that, oh, we could bring it back to that. We opened 3 hospitals that
hmm,
basically hired between those 15,000. The other 15,000, with all due respect, came because there was a study done saying, hey, we are understaffed. But, and why do we go pre pandemic? Can somebody explain that logic? What, we haven't grown?
point.
Yes.
So, Jimmy, you hinted at your fuck up of the week.
Okay, my fuck up of the week is this. It's a very simple thing.
Uh huh.
You are talking about screwing with the VA's administration. You're talking to reduce by almost $1 trillion the Medicare service of this country that
Yeah.
funds services for children, that funds services for disability people, who funds services for seniors who do not qualify for Medicare. And when I say don't qualify, people know, oh, if they're 65, if they pay into the system, they qualify. Nah, not everybody has $185 a month to pay.
Mhm.
They're better off just getting for free Medicaid. Uh, they're about to cut Social Security with the lie that there's people on a
Yeah.
list that are 300 years old. No, in 1725,
Clarify.
nobody was born in 1825 was able to qualify for Social Security because it didn't exist until 1930. So basically, there's nobody there. Now, there are lists of people whose grandparents were born there as proof that they were U.S. citizens because back then it was not a birth thing as much as that
Correct.
proved that your longevity here. So you were
Yeah.
proved with with your ancestors that you're going to be cutting the benefits of people to receive services in the airports. You're cutting everything that you are by using President Musk's group of 20-year-old fly people who think they know the world. And at 20, you did not know the world, neither did I. They're idiots who think that everybody's on probation should be fired and come back to the times of 2020 because the U.S. population has not grown since 2020. There's no need for no new personnel since 2020. There's no new VA hospitals since 2020. No, there's three that has taken up over 16,000 people, between 15 and 16,000 people, just to put people in those hospitals, doctors, nurses, people who cook food for the patients, hospital beds, nurses, and so on. So those three new hospitals are were needed. And for the record, where I live here in Lake Nona, they opened the Veterans Hospital, and they still are trying to get doctors and nurses in there
Yes,
because they're
that's
short of
true.
personnel. So let's stop pretending that we need to go back to 2020 because in 2020 everything was okay. Oh, and the fact that Trump was still president, and that's why they're going back. Your biggest fuck up is that you're cutting personnel with no measures as to what you created a budget that you went and said to Congress that you're okay with it, and you're using the word fraud. I am going to ask you to prove the fraud. Is there fraud? Yeah, but you know who benefits from the fraud? Mr. President, your friends. They are the ones, the rich and the powerful, who steal from us and put it in their pocket. So, with all due respect, if you're going to make America richer again, you might not want to cut Medicaid. You might not want to cut all these services because the people who provide the Medicaid services are rich people. They
Yeah.
get the money that is paid to them. So, with that, that is your fuck up of the week. You are reducing people to 2020 standards, which there's no measure of why we would do it, other than let's do it. Pull out of my a year, and that's what I'm going to use. We're going to go back 5 years ago because our population and our needs has not grown in the minimum. That's the fuck up of the week.
Well, again, Jimmy, thank you so much. This was quite the show. I think this is our longest show. What a
And I,
conversation. Incredible conversation today.
and I hope that everybody has a good weekend, and I hope to see them soon. But remember, like we always say, subscribe, make your comments, good or bad. Tell us if you have any suggestions of things you would like us to talk about. I'm more than glad to do so. And for those of you who start calling me the crazy Democratic uncle, thank you. I consider that very flattering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
You too. Enjoy your weekend.
You too.
Thank you.